The Intellectual Gentlemen's Club.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are at episode 20 for the IGC. Again, I want to thank everybody out there for subscribing, sharing, discussing on iTunes, website, social media, wherever you may find us out there. Tonight, we are going to be sponsored by The Unknown, and you will soon shortly find out why. I created a new support page on the website. It's dedicated to all the affiliate sponsors that give us some money flowing in to cover the web hosting and stuff. It's not very expensive to create this podcast, but it does come out of my pocket. And if any of you have a little extra dough, you can flip to the PayPal button. That would be great. But our affiliate sponsors, what's great about that is it costs you no money. So if you're going to use Amazon.com, Audible.com, or Onit.com, you can go right to the support page of our website. And just by clicking those links, it gives us credit for whatever you buy. It doesn't cost you anything additional. So we'll just leave it at that. So do your due diligence, and you can look those companies up if you feel like you want to buy something from there. I would really appreciate the support. For holiday shopping and stuff like that, it works great for Amazon. So anything you guys can do out there, we really appreciate it. Today, I got a couple gentlemen that I met through the Twitterverse out there. Very interesting characters. Our first guy here is IzzyRock. He is a podcaster / podcrafter. He is the host of Tales from the Hardside podcast. He's also the co-host of On the Block podcast. He hails from Dayton, Ohio, and is all about the Death Squad family, Inspired Disorder Collective, and he's all over social media. Izzy, how you doing out there, man?
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me on the show. I love what you're doing. I've listened to a few shows of yours, and it's nice to hear somebody start out doing a podcast and it sounds good. The quality's good. I learned a lot from the meditation episode, so I like what you're doing, man.
Cool. Thanks, man. Other guy we got with us here is Psychonautic Express. You can find him on Twitter at Psychonautic Express. He is a psychonaut. He is a mushroom aficionado, a advocate for sovereign consciousness over your own mind, and he frequents independent podcasts to drop knowledge, and he remains largely anonymous due to individual concerns. Welcome, P. How you doing out there?
Hey, I'm spectacular. Thank you so very much for having me. I think aficionado might be a little bit of a overreach in terms of descriptor. I'll stick with enthusiast.
Okay. This is called the Intellectual Gentlemen's Club, so we roll with a little bit of sarcasm here sometimes.
I feel you. I just want to say, too, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with Izzy again. We did a podcast a little while ago, and I had a great time on it, Tales from the Hardside, so, on the block. And I really, I appreciate being able to come back together with minds such as yourselves.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
Well, I'm excited for it, that's for sure.
I really appreciate you both being on. I found you guys, obviously, like I just said, through Twitter, and you're both giving a good vibe out there, positivity and good information, and both kind of against the propaganda machine like myself and all the disinformation that is out there. So welcome, guys. So I guess the first question, logically, would be, what made you get started in your own universes out there? Izzy, what made you start Tales? And P, how'd you get started in diving into psychedelics? When did that all happen for you?
I first started getting into podcasts back in 2005, 2006, and I quickly realized what this form of media was. It was true pirate radio. The first podcast I downloaded was from the Mediocre Show. My podcasts are currently on the Mediocre Radio Network. They're some of my best friends, and I recently had the host on, so they've become my buddies in this podcasting game, and I was inspired by them. And then I started listening to Rogan around episode 10, maybe.
Damn, that's going back, son.
Yeah, man. I was looking for. I work in in a warehouse where it's cold and I work 8 hours a day and I can listen to music or podcasts and music. I love music. I've always loved music, but I like talk radio. I like the stimulation of the conversation that podcast brings, and hearing. So I've always enjoyed comedy too, stand-up comedy. And around the time that Joe Rogan came out, I was looking for stand-up comedians to listen to, and I had heard this one podcast bash Joe Rogan before I had even really heard of him. Really only knew of him from Fear Factor and News Radio. I didn't know he was a stand-up. No, I wasn't even aware he was a UFC commentator because I wasn't a big UFC fan.
Gotcha.
And so I started listening to his podcast, and I'm an old school psychedelic fan. Back in the early 90s, I discovered psychedelics, and they changed my life for the better. And listening to Rogan talk about it and talk about the things that he did, and his friends like Joey Diaz, Ari Shaffir, and Duncan Trussell.
Aubrey Marcus, all them guys.
Yeah, all those guys. But specifically Ari and Duncan, listening to their podcasts and realizing you can just have a conversation with someone. So I started out doing a podcast, being inspired from those guys because I come from a long line of like white trash. I've said it on other podcasts. if you've watched The Wild Wonderful Whites of West Virginia,
word,
you get a glimpse into my childhood and what I grew up around.
That's the hard side part of it, right?
That's exactly the hard side part of it. And through psychedelics, I learned how to destroy the ego. I learned a lot of the questions I had asked about why am I here? Why was I put here? A lot of the religious and spiritual questions that I had about life, a lot of those were either answered or helped along and given me insight through psychedelics. And I went through a brief period of time where I was a religious person, and I felt I became very dedicated in the Christian church, considered becoming a preacher, was a paid youth leader, threw out albums, and I changed my life. And through that, I left faith after I saw some documentaries and some situations like that. And I learned that, I'm seeking, I'm constantly seeking knowledge and constantly seeking understanding of what life is about. And so I lost my faith, but through a rediscovery of psychedelics, allegedly, I don't know what's out there at this point. And so through my Christian faith that I had, I learned that the best tenets of Christianity, which is Jesus's teachings, if you apply those to your life, where you treat people kindly, you're not greedy, you look out for others, and you show love to one another, and you try to turn your cheek as much as possible without getting walked all over, that you can not only encourage others to do great things, but you yourself can go on to do great things. And so that's what I've been trying to promote in my own life, especially after hearing a lot of the philosophies from Rogan and those guys. I think he's a modern day philosopher, and he's really changed a lot of people's life. He would hate for me to say that about him, but I think he has changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's funny. I think we're all kind of kindred spirits in that aspect as far as those great questions, the big questions in life. The philosophy questions, really, where it gets down to it. What are we? Why are we here? Like you mentioned. And with my own journeys with psychedelics, I'm not an experienced user. I wouldn't call myself, but I have had great insights and, if you want to call them visions even, to where, where that makes sense to me at least. So
yeah.
P, how'd you get started?
Well, how I got started is not a big deal, but would you say, because this conversation is interesting, would you say that the insights that you receive from psychedelics mirror those of what Izzy was listing as the Christian tenets, if you will?
Would I say my philosophy is aligned with that?
would you say that the insights that you receive from psychedelics are aligned with the Christian tenets?
I don't know if I would call it the Christian tenets. I agree, Izzy, with what you're saying about Jesus' teachings. Like the things that I've read in the Gospels, some of those ring true to where what Jesus was talking about as far as turning the other cheek and, all about love. Like I'm a firm believer that if Jesus came back, which he's supposed to do, if he comes back and sees what the world of Christianity is, Jesus would owe a big bitch slap to the whole world, man.
Yeah. Right, but like I find it in, you guys are obviously probably familiar with the sacred mushroom and the cross, which is something that I'm sure we all picked up from listening to Rogan and stuff. But I keep discovering more and more and more experiential similarities between first-time users of psychedelics and a lot of the religion that exists.
I would say
the mushroom use dates back to 5,000 BC.
Right.
Cave paintings on walls where guys just have mushrooms sprouting out of every available inch of their skin. I post the picture on Twitter occasionally, and that's 5,000 BC. That's before writing. So it's like there's a commonality between all the faiths of the world. And I just find it, very interesting that to look and see how they probably all sprang from the mystical vision that, a psilocybe cubensis mushroom can induce in the person taking it, and then watching them all branch off and trying to look back and understand why one would branch off from another. And really, it comes down to these people weren't expanding their consciousnesses, and they were getting into fights about small, trivial shit, which is, and so it's a function of the ego that caused the I don't know, the disconnection from ourselves. Because if we were evolving, 5,000 BC, if we were evolving with the mushroom, and then to remove that from the evolutionary, as a component from the evolutionary process, no wonder we're in, in a place of division.
Yeah, I would say that I agree with you on the commonality of the religions. As far as visions that I have had on psychedelics, they haven't been related to any specific religion in general. Like for a long time, I considered myself a Buddhist, and I was baptized a Catholic, but I'm so far away from that I don't even consider myself to be Christian in any faction.
Sure.
But what I
foundationally though.
Sure. Yeah, but what I did experience on psychedelics is that the breakdown of the dogma, and I understood that one of the revelations that I had was, wow, everybody is trying to explain the exact same thing, but it's all muddled up, man. And the problem is that man has a hand in it. Once you try and describe something or put rules to something, it's already fucked. So I think that
our entire reality is based on rules.
Sure. In language.
Right. Well, language is a rule, to a certain extent. Mathematics is a base language, and everything, this entire existence is rules. And I was listening to your Brad Burgess interview earlier today when you're talking about Oprah spreading it shuts down portions of your brain, it causes holes in the brain, and the fact that psilocybin decreases the the oxygenation of the blood in the prefrontal cortex. I think that the prefrontal cortex that we have going on here creates more rules. Is taking the data. What is it? We get 10 billion bytes of data or something like that every minute,
right?
Second or minute, and then we only process like 400 bytes or some crazy low number. Somebody's gonna have to look that up. Look that up again. I don't have the numbers right. Yeah, I don't have the numbers right, but we're processing a minuscule fraction of the information that is being presented to us in the form of electromagnetic stimulus at any given second, and maybe shutting down those cortical regions allows us to process more of that. Maybe they are rule defining, and that's why we're so good evolutionary because we can understand the rules and we create more rules. Schrodinger's observer.
I think a common misconception that a lot of people have, and for those out there that have listened to the Brad Burge interview, this is just kind of a recap, but I was under the impression for a long time that psilocybin and other psychedelics actually brought something extra into your brain, like a chemical would be introduced to your system that would give you these hallucinations or visions or whatever you want to call them.
A neurotransmitter is being introduced into the system.
Sure, but it actually, what I found is it's shutting down different areas in your brain, which I think perhaps can allow unseen forces that we don't have normal contact with to kind of leak in a bit and absorb those in there.
Yeah, I call it the emergent. I wrote a little essay on it called "The Emergent Properties of Reality Using Psilocin Microscopy." Nice. And it's like the reducing Aldous Huxley's reducing valves of consciousness are. It's shutting down the frontal cortex is the equivalent of opening the spigot on your valve of conscious awareness. Because I believe that we write data to memory before we actively process it. Like it's written to memory, and then something's and then it's read, and then the signal for action or whatever is fired. So it's almost like you're choosing what you want to process, and when you take the mushroom into you, its neurotransmitter that's connected to its consciousness through a Bell's non-locality theorem is deciding to let a little bit more information through. I need more data.
I think you just effectively blew everybody's mind.
He has a habit of doing that, which is why I love hearing him on a podcast. Yeah. One of the interesting things that I discovered within the past couple of years, especially with the whole mushroom, the idea that the Christian faith was kind of the John Marco Allegro story, that the Christian faith was a mushroom cult, a fertility cult that had their messages were of different psychedelics were hidden within parables and stories.
Sure.
Last year I like to hang up Christmas lights. I like the Christmas season. I've always enjoyed, especially having kids. I enjoy the coming together with family and decorating and all that. And I was at the store last year and I picked up this box that had this mushroom on it, and it was a LED mushroom light, and it was sold with the other Christmas lights, but there was there's nothing that says Merry Christmas or anything on it. And I thought, how weird is it that here's this mushroom that they're selling, this LED mushroom at Target that I'm buying, and I can put it along with my other lights. Like, a company is sending out mushrooms unsuspectingly, showing that the history of our species is connected to mushrooms. You look
is it unsuspecting though? Like, is it unsuspecting, or is it somewhere in there? The same way that I think Fibonacci is somewhere in us. How many people unsuspectingly put it into wrought iron work, and unsuspectingly throw it into their art, and unsuspectingly put it on T-shirt designs, and unsuspectingly, incorporate it into every aspect of like architecture and building. You know what I mean? It's like, so is the mushroom popping up? Do people choose the mushroom unsuspectingly? Why is everybody so fucking fond of mushrooms?
I think if you look at kind of the exposure that Rogan has brought to psychedelics over the past couple of years, and he's not. I think the problem with the counterculture when you're dealing with cannabis or psychedelics. I love Cheech and Chong. I love Dazed and Confused, and I love all that stuff. But I think those characters did a disservice to a plant that not only helps heal us as a species, but it's essential to us moving away from growing corn and things like that.
Do you think that was coincidental?
No. I think that I don't know if there's a heaven or hell, but I had a pretty powerful DMT and mushroom trip together.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, that's the best, man. Okay.
Whoa.
Dude, it's incredible.
Do you want to hear it, Jason? Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, allegedly, I went on a camping trip, and
I love that word.
And there was a group of us that went, and there was possibly some mushrooms taken, a few grams, and we moved on to smoke DMT. And
how long were you like in the peak? Like an hour? Like...
No. We took the mushrooms.
And then okay, gotcha.
And then 5 minutes later or whatever.
Yeah. So, and then so you rode out of the DMT into the
the mushroom trip. So
allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. And I took 3 huge hits of this, and by the third hit, I mean, reality just was not there. It was gone. It was something totally different, and it was something that is unexplainable. You can't put it into words. Anybody that wants to hear it, listen to the Potent Brew podcast. You can't put it into words as you're experiencing it. And it's hard to put it into words after it's over because it's like a dream. It's very slippery.
New language needs to be invented for this, by the way.
Exactly.
Right now, I would say 93% of the people coming out of their first DMT trip go, what the fuck?
Even though they know it's going to be fucking crazy, right?
No, you don't know. You know.
Well, I know if I smoke DMT, some crazy shit's going to happen, but I can't. I think if and whenever I get around to trying it, I think that it's going to be so far away from what my expectations and imagination could even be.
It is.
It's so far removed from what I could even relate to.
Yeah. So I took these 3 hits, and I slipped into this dreamlike state where I was taken along, and I was shown some stuff in my life that I needed to take care of. And there was another time I had an experience with it, and it was fun, and it felt like I had been there before. It felt like, oh, this is familiar to me. If anybody's heard the Tool song Third Eye,
sure.
Those lyrics perfectly explain it. Like, oh, this feels like I've been here before. And then once you leave it, and it's like, for myself, because back in the 90s, I had a lot of experience with LSD, and I had a lot of experience with mushrooms.
Allegedly.
No, definitely those times. Like
statute of limitations is passed.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
There was one summer where I took LSD every weekend for the whole summer. Nearly every weekend for the whole summer, and sometimes it was badass and didn't work, but there was times where psychologists, I couldn't have paid a psychologist enough to work through a lot of the issues that I had at the time. And, when I was going to church, I fell into the whole propaganda, like, oh, it's a druggy thing. But after really listening to Rogan and starting to do research, listening to Terrence McKenna, listening to Duncan Trussell especially, you get a different side. You see that it was it's a tool, but it's a tool that, just like a car, if you use a car to kill someone, it's used in a bad way. Psychedelics are that way as well. They are to be respected, and if you don't respect them, like that's when you hear about people having bad trips, I believe. And because
I think the bad trip, there's a respect thing, but there's also a being shown like some like what you don't want to see.
Yeah.
If I could, I don't think you can make a commonality about it, but I think fear. I think there's two things that create this reality, right? There's like the waveform with both a peak and a valley, a top point and a trench. Everything is made out of waves. Everything in here is made out of waves. So it's like there's love and there's fear. So, are you scared of something that could happen to you, or are you scared of looking at yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of people that I've been around, that I grew up around, did shitty things to people. They stole from people. They they cheated the system. And when I think when you take psychedelics and you start seeing how bad greed is, and you start seeing how bad certain things are, at least for me, it spoke to me in that way, that certain things in my own life, addiction to food, financial situation, like it really showed me certain points in my life that I needed to fix. And I started working towards fixing that. But one of the side effects ever since I took that trip was I've been discovering a lot of Instagram through my friends, and I've been making these psychedelic pictures that I've really been enjoying.
I love them, by the way, man. The last one with the stained glass was incredible.
Dude, a lot of that has come straight from that experience, and that experience was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. And I wouldn't change it, but I was shown a lot, and at this point, I'm not ready to experience that again for a while.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that at some point in the future, we need to get to a point where that becomes a space that people can go to safely, and people can go to really as a form of counseling. And we really need to get back to having shamans in our society.
I completely agree with that. I was talking with Brad about MDMA, and the problem that why I believe why it's not more accepted legally is because the pharmaceutical companies are so ingrained with their profit margins. They understand that MDMA only needs to be used once or twice in a therapeutic environment to do the work that, say, Xanax would for 8 years when you're taking it every day, or Effixor or whatever is kind of going on there.
I was
dude,
feedback here.
Sorry, guys, my dogs went nuts. They heard a door or something. It's a problem with living with animals. We have a couple dogs, and they definitely making a lot of noise. My apologies.
One too, man. I love them. So
yeah.
You can some of the podcasts you can hear Chaos's nails tip tap across the top of my floor. So
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, but I was intrigued. Come on, man.
Yeah. Oh, where were you? But as far as therapeutic uses for it, I think that
right. Once and twice and done. I quit a 15-year pack-a-day cigarette habit off a 1 6-gram mushroom trip.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
In April, I haven't even thought about having a cigarette since. Cold turkey, bam. Johns Hopkins is running studies on it right now, and they had presentations at Horizons 2013 at the psychedelic conference that I went to, that I got to meet Dennis McKenna at, which was dope. But awesome. And 90% of the people that have gone through their protocol for using mushrooms to help them quit smoking have quit smoking.
Yeah, it has the ability to, when you're bringing the set and setting in a good manner, when you have something that you want to be shown or whatever, it has the tendency more often than not to painfully almost show you an honest look outside of your egoic mind can show you.
Can I tell you my crazy idea on it? Why that is?
All ears, buddy.
Because I do believe I'm going to continue in Terrence's vein of mushroom intelligence, because I agree with it because I've spoken to it. You know,
logos.
Yeah, man, the logos. So it wants a better tool. You know, Terrence is like, yeah, it says to you, I need the nervous system of a mammal. Do you have one handy? You know, and
wow, yep.
And then to continue that, it's like, oh, in order to do anything here, I need a better tool. I know people. This has gotten me into places where I've been gladly, thankfully talking to people that have long relationships with like specific species of psilocybe mushrooms. Some people like talking to the Mexicanas. Some people like talking to the guys from Hawaii.
See, you are an aficionado. Don't tell me you're not an aficionado.
So, no, I mean, I'm not. These people are.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Allegedly?
But they have all sorts of different strains and species, and
right.
and I actually had the last two I had one, and then so I had two experiences recently that were the toughest of my amateur career, and it was with 2 grams of this stuff. It's called ape, albino penis envy. There's all sorts of folklore on this mushroom. Supposedly Terrence McKenna is involved in bringing it back from the Amazon and all this stuff, and then crossbreeding it with this albino mushroom. But most mushrooms are in the stems, they're hollow. These guys are albino, and they look messed up, and they look like a penis, hence the name. But they're filled with this cobweb style looking fluff in the middle of the mushroom, and when you break it, it's fucking blue. You know what I mean? Like psilocybin bruised is blue, and it is really fucking blue.
What do you mean it bruises blue?
Oh, psilocybin when it's exposed to oxygen, when it's exposed to air, like iron rusts, it turns blue. It oxidizes. What's the term for that? Something rusting is something oxidizing. It oxidizes blue. So so if that's actually a good way to identify psilocybin mushrooms, it's like if you squeeze the stem and it turns blue or purple, you've probably got psilocybin. And then the way to double check that is to take a spore print of the cap, and if it's black, then you probably got psilocybin.
Psychonautic, dropping some knowledge.
I love it.
Yeah. So, but this stuff on the inside of it, it's like, and they're so light. I call it the fearful fluff. I'll just quickly tell you, at the last I was at a fish show, and I had a measly 2 grams of this stuff when normally I eat significantly heavier than that. And there were a couple of minutes there where I was like, fuck, you broke yourself.
Shit.
Like you broke yourself. Everybody froze in Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Every single human being froze in whatever like position they were in the middle of rocking out to fish. The band froze. The music continued. I felt like I was in that TV show where the girl could like stop time and then I don't know, like touch the tips of her fingers together and start time again. What was that show?
Was that Heroes?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like when I was like 80s or something like that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I forget what it's called, though.
But I had a couple of minutes there that I was like, shit. But I'm glad I had it. I was terrified out of my mind, but I'm glad I had the experience because, like, the lessons that I got from that, I'm still digesting. But it was absolutely terrifying. But it was the most profound of all my experiences. So it was like this mushroom had a personality of like, I don't care about your feelings, human, but here's what you need to do. So it was interesting. I do think they have different personalities.
Pete, let me ask you a little bit about because you're fairly well versed on this stuff. Could you talk a little bit about the neuroscience behind psilocybin in the brain?
The wonderful thing, the thing that really blows my mind in terms of the molecular composition, it boils down to the basic question of what is consciousness and where is consciousness housed? Is it housed in the meat, or is it housed outside of the meat?
Right.
So I think it's outside of the meat.
You take almost like a Rupert Sheldrake approach to it then?
Right, but I think the molecules that operate in your systems, like the neurotransmitters specifically, are like little antennas
Yeah. Okay.
that are picking up on specific frequencies of this broadband in the cloud consciousness that we are all sharing. So psilocybin is the perfect psychedelic because it turns into psilocin when it passes into your blood-brain barrier. There's a phosphorus group that gets knocked off, clipped off, and that's what allows it to actually pass. Otherwise, it would just, the thing that's active once it's in your bloodstream and hits your brain, otherwise would be broken down by your stomach because it's you can't walk around tripping all the time, and molecules that look like that, like psilocin and DMT and serotonin, all look exactly the same. You know, there are only a couple atoms difference, and those atoms are 99.999999% empty space according to the quantum physicists. So
Sure.
you know, what the fuck is going on? But anyway, like they your stomach, you know, the enzymes in your stomach would normally break that down because you can't walk around tripping all the time because then you can't catch the deer. You know what I mean?
Or
But
do anything.
you can't do anything.
Right.
So the reason it's perfect is because it's the one thing that you can eat that it's almost like it's made to work with your body. You know, and then it goes and plugs in there, and all of a sudden you have a conversation with something that is far brighter than you are, and you know, and you're seeing different things, you know, like, and they're all different. They're all different, and the different molecules are different. Like when I eat peyote, or mescaline, I'll see, you know, what the Incan the Aztec symbology and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on walls just popping up. And then you gotta think to yourself, well, if I'm seeing this in 3-dimension relief in a complexity that I've never seen before from photos, it's not like I've been to the ruins, you know, I've only seen photos of the ruins. There's no way that I could extrapolate this. Maybe it's the plant trying to communicate with me.
I'm gonna jump off track here just a bit. We'll stay with psychedelics, but I've read about soma, and there's a lot of speculations on what soma is, and it's either been erased from history and the planet, or it is something that we use currently in a psychedelic state, but nobody is quite agreed on what exactly it is or was. What's your theory on soma?
I don't know the breadth of detail on that topic, and different perspectives and points of view is a little bit overwhelming to my puny intellect at the moment. I haven't delved in to soma. I obviously adore Terrence, and he thinks that it's the mushroom. So I'll you know, if there must be a way in, it'll be on that lever for the time being, but I don't know. What about you, Izzy? Are you versed in it?
No, not at all. In fact, a lot of the psychedelic information that I've discovered has just been within the past couple years. And I think if you look at the internet itself and you look at how information is spread now, and you look at where we're going as far as technology, I think once people can visually see like a movie of what we see when we're on those trips,
right,
that's when people will start going, wait a second, there might be something here.
Decode it. That's when you can oh my God, you just blew my top.
Yeah, I honestly think that we're with the Oculus Rift, with our love of technology, how we're already connected, and we're with the 3D printing, we're moving away from having to use all the resources that we have. We can really break down where people aren't hungry anymore, where you're not going to stand in line at a Best Buy to get your products. You're going to remove a lot of the greed because people are going to be able to share information and make things. And I think it's going to make things easier. And especially once once we get some generations that understand the lies that we were told about cannabis and how serious that has hurt our species, as far as the resources that we use with petroleum, the cannabis plant can make pretty much anything that plastic makes. Cannabis can make that. And we have I live in Ohio where there's a lot of cornfields. Those cornfields could be growing hemp.
Yeah, Michigan too.
To help us. There's a lot of blue collar workers who are working fast food jobs who could be working in the hemp and cannabis industry, because let's face it. Here, I want to ask you guys about this. This past weekend, or last week, I went to Thanksgiving with my wife's family, and I got into a discussion about cannabis, and you know, her family is a little bit more conservative on that. They're progressive in their support of people and beliefs, but they're still behind. They still believe a lot of the propaganda that I grew up with through the DARE program, and so
right.
it's hard to talk to them about this the whole time. And her aunts and uncles, her uncle is a lawyer in New York. My wife's uncle is a lawyer in New York, and her aunt is a DA in New York. And so, having a conversation with them, I'm sitting there drinking 13% wine, 4 glasses. Everybody's laughing, have a good time. And the fact that I bring up cannabis, which is just another intoxicant, just like coffee, except it's one that heals us.
It's not an intoxicant.
I'm talking about
I know. I'm just kidding.
The euphoric aspect of it, the high that people get, because if you look at like edibles, somebody can take edibles and really sink into this deep where they feel like they're going to die. I mean, you heard the cops call the police.
That was,
great.
I live next to the city where that actually went down.
No,
that was a Dearborn, Michigan cop that called in. Thought he was feared for his life after he ate a brownie with his old lady.
Dude, we should find out where he lives and then get a support thing going. Like, I'm sorry you had a bad time. Get everybody to just write sympathy letters. Like, it's okay, you know?
Well, he could get it legally here as long as he has a doctor's prescription in Michigan now. So.
I was so traumatized by my trip on pot that I need pot.
and, you know, I know a lot. I know it's not for everybody. I know that some people just it's.
Yeah, but you should be able to talk about it. It's a fucking plant. It's a fucking planet. It's on the planet. It should be the same as talking about a goddamn whale or a rock or anything that you talk about on the planet. You know?
Listen, guys. It's the most dangerous chemical on the planet Earth. THC. Come on now.
Stop it.
You know, that's coming here in a few years.
If Ronald Reagan was back, that's what we would be hearing again.
I mean,
this is the most dangerous substance in America, he called it, I believe. It doesn't get more. It's just
so,
hilarious.
Izzy, how do you fix that? Or do you have to just wait and let time take its toll?
It's
I feel
fixed.
like we should all just be raising funds to buy advertising promoting cannabis and psychedelics, because that's all it takes. All it takes is a week-long ad campaign.
Listen, we don't have to do that. We're already doing that right now as we speak. The people listening to this, they don't hear Chichi
but it's not that. You know what I mean? Just like you ran into the block of a talking point with those people, right? Mm-hmm. Like you ran into a block with them. You need to target them in their language. You need to know your audience, right? Like,
right.
You know, so the podcast crew is cool, and we're all on the same page. You know what I mean? Thank God. And it's evolving. It's all coming together. But the people, you need to target people that actually have. If we're not going to take over the system like via voting, you need to target the people that are the age demographic that are friends of the people that are making the law. Because it's like, you get the guy that's friends with the senator to say, like, Bob, I just want to buy some fucking pot, Bob. Make it legal, Bob. You know what I mean? At the Christmas party.
Well, guys, what gives me hope here is, as far as cannabis is concerned, is we have 2 states now, Washington and my favorite state, Colorado, where it is legalized. We have multiple states. I think at least half the states now have some type of medicinal law on the books where you can get it with a prescription. The culture is changing. You look at like what Adam Scorgi's doing. He's, the Culture High. He's got a new one. Or the Union was the first one. The Culture High is coming out. But I actually sent that video on YouTube to my mother because we've gone round and round about marijuana for many, many years. And when I sent it to her, she's like, well, yeah, I know all this already now. So it's like when my mom, someone who is dead set against all drugs and alcohol for many, many years, is stating that, yeah, well, I understand the propaganda behind it. I understand it's bullshit. She still doesn't like it when if we're having a family gathering, if it's being used. I can tell that she gets a little weird with it, and I can understand that. And I respect it, but at least there is good information coming out. The walls are breaking down. I mean, I can only see that it's going to be more and more pressure on the federal government to just get that shit off Schedule 1 because it's fucking nonsense.
Yeah, once we get the statistics and we get the information from Colorado and Washington, once time goes by and the reports come out, because the internet is our friend with this, with the spread of information. If you look at any comment section of any weed story on any internet site, you'll see mostly people coming out in support of it, and the people that are against it are just spouting propaganda that makes no sense in 2013.
Madness shit, yeah.
I
mean, it's clear if you look at Reefer Madness, the original movie, it's a comedy movie. You look at it. I mean, people thought that was legit. That you're going to smoke a joint, you're going to go rape a woman, you're going to go out and kill people driving your car around.
Surely the first people that saw it thought it was hilarious. They're like, what the fuck is this?
The people had used it before, probably. But if you've never used marijuana and you're fed the same bullshit lies your entire life, like through the DARE program and shit like that, and there are dangerous drugs.
But cannabis was in cough syrup.
What's that? Cannabis
was in cough syrup.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of textiles and everything that it used to be used for, and it's with everything as far as like fossil fuels and things like that, and all the major uses that can be brought with it.
Yeah. I don't understand. I just don't understand how you pull it off. Like how did this get pulled off in the first place? And I don't know if it's even important to understand how it gets pulled off or versus, I think you're right, Izzy. I think the comment sections are going to be the new form of trend setting, I guess. I guess it's got to be something like that, right?
Well, having information spread, the fact that you can be in a bar now, I had somebody do this to me recently, tell me that they saw Macklemore in Cleveland or someplace in Ohio. And I said, I don't think that's him. The picture didn't look like him. I said, let me see where he's at. And I pulled out my phone and saw that Macklemore was in Europe. The one thing that we're experiencing now is that we can't be bullshitted unless we allow ourselves to.
Oh, dude, good topic though. I see it on Twitter all the time. I try to check everything that sounds discreditable to me. Like somebody put a story up about the U.S. buying 3,000 guillotines. Like industrial guillotines, and I'm like, and then it was this whole article about all the executive orders that have just been recently signed, and this is going to take this right away, and this takes this right away, and I'm like, I bet if I read all of those orders, I could extrapolate what they are saying and say, okay, yes, I suppose it could be used like that, but I don't believe it would be the intent, and you hope you're not the silly guy saying that at the end of the day, but. I had to look it up, and I was like, guillotines. That's like bold. You know what I mean? That's bold.
That's getting medieval on your ass.
Right. And so Snopes said it was false, but then you're like, do they own Snopes? So the problem today is the ability for anyone to put out any sort of information.
Too much information, right?
Yeah.
And that's where things get scary. That's where I bet situations all the time just get popped off from disinformation, and that's a scary thought.
let's talk about some hard science here. As far as the substances that can really hurt you out there. So there's something called an LD50. There's the amount of the substance which kills 50% of the subjects who ingest it. So where does cannabis psilocybin fall on that scale of harmful?
It's not even on the chart, the only way that you can be killed by cannabis is if some falls out of a CIA drug plane. Isn't that Joe Rogan's thing? Like if a bale falls upon you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mushrooms, it's for a 160-pound person, it's like 3.7 pounds dried.
Keeping that down. Is
the LD50, and the effective dose is like a gram. So you're cool. There's a point that you get to. When I was at that fish show, there was a couple minutes where I was thinking, oh, I need to just, leave here, and if I start talking to somebody, I was scared that they were going to throw a net over me or something, so that you get into places like that, but you're far, far away from it being lethal or damaging to your body.
Though. Largely physical. I mean, look at alcohol, look at nicotine, look at even caffeine. I mean, it's very small doses of these other chemicals that can really fuck you up or kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, nicotine, I heard, is one of the most powerful pound-for-pound chemicals that are out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But like I think going back to your question earlier on the molecules, serotonin and psilocin and DMT are all nothing but a couple atoms different from each other, and they are all present in things that look like neurons, right? Serotonin is in the neurons in our brain. DMT you find in tree roots, and
everywhere, DMT, right?
Right. I mean, it's everywhere. But and psilocin and psilocybin, you find that in mushroom mycelium, which looks a lot like the neurons in the brain. So,
which looks a lot like the universe.
Right, which looks a lot like the internet, which looks a lot like the road structures, and it's like, we're just manifesting how we're built onto the face of the planet, unconsciously, which is really funny. But it's like, if the closer it is to your systems, probably the least harmful that it is, or the less harmful it could be, I would imagine.
I'm talking about these structures where we're seeing everywhere. It's interesting. I've been to some beautiful places in my life, and I've seen pictures of these places as well, and it doesn't do the same justice. There's something about the eye getting its vision on a beautiful landscape where I don't know if it's mathematics that are behind it completely, or if it's just emotions, or if it's attachments that I have individually, but there's something to say about
energy
beauty.
In the actual, is there information, is there depth of information in the actual light particles that are emanating, that are bouncing off of these structures? We know that photons, scientists, they describe photons as a packet of information.
Okay, like a byte.
A photon is a packet of information. So what do you do with that? So light, which bounces off of some things, and only portions of the light is reflected. So only a portion of the packet of information is reflected. So is it to say that whatever it bounced off of always existed in the light, in the photon? Because what bounces off is what's carrying the information about the object to your brain. So is the information about the object always, can every photon of light be anything?
That's interesting. And what also is interesting is the electromagnetic spectrum, what is out there, what's bouncing around as far as like radio waves, gamma rays, X-rays. The visible light spectrum is just a pinprick of what's really out there. Like there's a lot of, I was listening to Rogan and Lorenzo Haggerty.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great one. And what he said was, just think about all the information that is in this room right now. We can only get our five senses on it, but if we have the right equipment, it can be decoded.
Yeah.
There's shit like that bouncing all over the place. Stuff that we haven't even invented or even thought about before is probably bouncing around
shrimp
us.
has a wider range of vision than we do.
The what does?
A mantis shrimp.
Oh, wow.
Pigeons can use the electromagnetic waves created by the planet fields. They use electromagnetic fields to navigate. Homing pigeons do.
A lot of animals are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen? Terrence put it great, as he did everything. I don't know who discovered water, but it certainly wasn't a fish. And
yeah, it's funny because
we are just swimming in this water that we have no idea about, but we're inventing things to tell us about it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one of the funny things that happened this past week, my son, as 10-year-olds do, they make things in pottery and bring them home, and he made this like little cup, and I posted a picture of it or a video of it on Instagram. He made this little cup. And he's sitting there and he's explaining to me how awesome it is that human beings created stuff like this to be able to use as tools to be able. And when he started talking about it, I picked up my phone and I started capturing it. And he said things like the internet, things that we use like this. And he pointed at his pottery where he had some snack that he had in it. And if a child can connect that, we as a species can visualize something like Jason, you and I have both created podcasts. We put out information out there for the world to hear, and we did that through thoughts. We did that through a preparation, behind the scenes to break the fourth wall. Jason is one of the most prepared podcasters I've ever come across. He gave this great bullet point, as somebody who's done,
which was dope. That was really good,
dude.
Yeah.
So as a species, we create these things. We create movies. We create music. Like some of the greatest music we created and put out there for the universe to see. Everything we see around us was created by the thought of a human being. And I think that when we tap into what is our consciousness, what is that creative aspect, that when we see either stuff that we've created or stuff that the earth itself, mountains, the ocean, things that are too large for us to really take in and put words to, I think that when we really get down to where we can create much easier, just like these podcasts, making these podcasts 10, 20 years ago would have taken a lot more of a process. Right.
It's getting easier and easier to create, and eventually the nexus of that is going to the singularity point, is when we realize that we can create whatever we want with a thought at any given time. And in all honesty, we are all one singular consciousness, creating different perspectives of itself.
Right.
But that's when it starts over, right? That's when you're like, oh, that's boring. I got to forget this stuff, right? I got to forget that.
Well, we're on.
That's part of the birth process. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. And we're learning this stuff. We're experiencing this stuff with the internet and technology. But at any moment, bacteria could take out our species, like the black plague. We could
There's
have
a book called The Hot Zone that's really, Stephen King said it was the scariest book he ever read. It's about the Ebola virus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I see the tornadoes that come. I see the asteroids that come. And if we focus on the fear of that, and like the media wants to push on us, this fear of snow, this fear of weather.
What is going on with that, do you think? Why?
Well, I think
sensationalism. That's it.
That's it. And we're exposed on a massive scale now, where we're all filmed. Everywhere we go, everybody has cell phone cameras. And so I think we're getting too much information for where we are as a species in our evolutionary process. And I think something like mushrooms could help us understand that a little bit better. But it has to come off, like we have to find a way to get it where it's more organized, where it's not so fearful.
Well, it is fear. I don't understand the continuance of it, right? Like I
think a lot of it is pattern and just upbringing, because I know it was the thing to do is to watch the 5 o'clock news, right?
No, it's like there's money in it,
there's
though.
too much news now. We have like how many news stations on cable TV that run 24/7? There's too much out there. Like they have to fill in all this bullshit time with, oh, this is what they're doing over here. Oh, this is what they're doing over here. You have to be aware of this. You have to be aware of that. So
also, they can put more product placement
there.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I stay away from the mainstream media as much as possible. And you can hate on me out there for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. I like to get my information nowadays from different internet sites. I generally leave the TV off unless I'm watching a movie or a show where I can go right through the DVR. It makes no sense to me to turn on CNN to see some bullshit about the royal family and whatever who's doing in celebrity world. It doesn't fucking matter. It's nonsense that you're filling your head with, and I just don't want it in my head. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
exactly.
I want to read People
choosing
magazine.
Choosing what you allow to make up your consciousness, right? So the content, much like the food that we put into our body eventually becomes our body, the content that we put into our consciousness eventually becomes our consciousness.
You fucking got it, man.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
I haven't even heard it put like that before, but it's so true. You are what you eat. You are what you think, I guess, or whatever. You are what you're thinking.
You create what you consume.
You create your own reality, and that's
that's
legitimate.
Really where it is, right? That's the real, to break the false vision that we all have as human beings between us. Like, you gotta say what is it that's really going on, because we're zooming in and we're zooming in and we're zooming in, and it's the pixels are becoming wider and wider spaced, and as above so below proves true at every turn. And I've learned through my process over the last 2 years that exactly what we were just saying, like what we consume is what we create, and that I can actively choose to create specific realities. By thinking about things from a perspective that allows the space to create that reality.
I mean, you can look at your life and you can pinpoint different things that you want to change, right? People instinctively, I think, know what they need to change, what they need to do. It's just a matter of getting the motivation to do it. But you have to take steps in those directions. Like, I knew I wanted to do a podcast after I listened to countless hours of, Joe Rogan and Duncan and London Real and, countless others out there. And so I had to take these steps to make it happen. It's not just, things don't happen overnight. You have to put a plan in action. If you want to lose weight, you know what you got to do. You got to eat less. You got to do work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it takes work. It's we as people need to actually put the work in and put hard work in. And some people will look at a situation and be like, oh, it was probably easy for that person to do what they're doing, or oh, it seems easy for that person to do what they do. And it never is. Everybody starts out walking. Everybody starts out as a beginner in something before they become an expert in it. And some people give up stuff that they love, but I think if you can focus your life on not yourself, but also yourself, taking care of yourself, but focusing on like telling people that you love them, letting people know that you like what they're putting out, reaching out and just being a more positive person when you're around just the general public. When you go to a restaurant, smile and say hi at the waitress. Like I went to the dentist office and I asked, and this is important for podcasters out there, for anybody wanting to start a podcast. The thing when you have a guest on, or when you interact with people, and especially I do a lot of interviews where I'll go and interview people, and the people love to reveal about themselves. People love to tell about what they're passionate about or what's going on in their life. If you take the time to listen and ask, And a lot of us are distracted with our daily lives, and we're very busy. But if we can take the time and kind of pass it on, as far as buy somebody a cup of coffee or call somebody up that you haven't talked to in a while, just be kind and be nice to people, you're going to come across a lot of success in your life, because generally people like to be around hard workers, kind people, positive people. I cannot stand to work with negative people, and I realized a couple of years ago I was a negative person at my work. I work in a blue collar job that makes me feel meaningless at times, but because I have podcasts and I know that the paycheck I'm earning is for that hobby and to support my family, I look at that as a positive and look at that, okay, I'm doing something positive with the time outside, whether it's coaching football, whether it's dedicating, like I'm going to be starting to work with the Gym City podcast to promote local music, because the radio stations are doing it. So
right.
I said, nobody else is doing live podcasts in my area. Nobody else is covering the artists in my area. And artists love that you notice their stuff. I love when people like my Instagram photos. It feeds my ego and it makes me feel good. And I love to pass that on to other people. I know that when I favorite or retweet somebody's stuff, or I like their pictures on Instagram, or I like their Facebook stuff, that for us as a species, that we need that embrace of letting people know that you care about them, letting people know that you like what they're doing. Man, if everybody did that to something that they enjoyed, instead of this negativity of like, oh, your stuff is bullshit, or the trolls that you find online, if people took that energy and put it to tell people that they enjoyed what they did, or tell people that you love them, or that you care about them, or encourage people, like all the hippy dippy shit, all the love, like that's what you need. That's what we as a species need to move forward. And some people have grown up in an area and a space and a time that they've had nothing but negative people around them. I'm telling you, if you can change the outlook on your life, if you start thinking positively and not the secret bullshit, because it takes hard work. Like when I was a Christian, guys, I went 3 years without masturbating.
Oh,
3.
Whoa.
Like no shit. Like I would go into a store because I viewed looking at other women lustfully as adultery towards my wife. So I worked not to do that towards women, and I did it. And like I was a dedicated person in the church. The thing that frustrated me with Christianity when I was within the church, and the experience that I had, especially because I was a paid youth leader, is the politics within the church and the people that think that the building is more important than feeding the poor people. That the service itself, the music and everything, is more important than getting out there. Don't talk to Jesus. Don't talk about Jesus to these people. Go show them love. Go care for them.
That was his message anyway.
Whatever
That's
you
it,
do
man.
to the least, right?
I mean, that's the key, and it's hard to do that as human beings, because we fall into patterns, and generally we like to be lazy. But if you like, I realized I like shoveling snow. I like doing hard labor. It makes me feel good, and I can listen to headphones and get distracted and get lost in what I'm doing.
You're meditating is what you're doing, bro.
Yeah.
That's it. Like Rogan talked about it, like being, either Rogan or Ari talked about being in an airport or being in traffic, and instead of being pissed off that you're in the traffic, say to yourself, this is the situation I'm in right now. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to just use my time to think about something else other than complaining in my mind about what's going on. And if you can do that, with other aspects of your life, whether it's work, whether it's sitting through your children's choir, or something you might not enjoy, if it's a family get together, use that time to be a more positive influence around those people. And I'm around negative all the time. Like my mom was just recently in the hospital, and she had cancer cut out of her lungs.
Oh.
And Yeah, she's good now. She's resting at home. But my brother is a paranoid schizophrenic who lives with her, who believes that he's being gang stalked, and,
right.
and like there's a lot of sadness around me and a lot of heavy stuff. But because I grew up in such a rough environment early on, and because I've seen like my 16-year-old brother.
Well, you're choosing a perspective too. You're choosing a
That's
very
it.
positive perspective, and that's all you have to. That's all we can do, and that's all we. That is literally the only thing that we have control over.
That's it, man.
It's your attitude. Yeah.
Whatever perspective you're going to choose is the only real choice that you have.
and it's not easy. It's fucking work. Just like people that run and exercise and eat right. Like people will be like, oh, I know a lot of lazy people who said, oh, you're stuck on yourself or whatever. Like if you're actually taking care of yourself, I've been around a lot of people that will bash and say you think you're better than everybody.
That's not what it's about, man.
But it's not.
Not usually. You know,
No.
I mean, there's cases like that, but I you know what? The most important rule that I've found, like, and it's not necessarily a rule, it's just a slogan that came out of the Death Squad community, is don't be a cunt.
That's it.
If you don't like the word cunt, then don't be a dick. You know, but it's a very simple rule to live by, and if you do that, it seems to follow you with an air of positivity.
Doors start open. Yeah. And you have to have faith, and you have to believe in that too. Like, you know, you can take that a whole bunch of different ways. I'm in a time of transition from my, the career path that I've been on for the last 10 years, and opening a business. And it's, you know, and it looks like, you know, it could get turbulent. But you know, it could get turbulent if things don't go perfectly, like don't go well. But I know
that's life, though, right?
Right,
Yeah,
and you look back and you say, like, we've all made it through everything, just like we were talking about earlier. We've made it. We are the products of those who survived every war, every bubonic plague, every asteroid impact, every volcanic eruption since the dawn of the first cellular life on this planet. So, you know, worrying is kind of betting against yourself.
It does no good, also. I mean,
no good.
it you have to prepare yourself for some things. I agree with that the aspect of it, but I come from a long line of worriers. Got a lot of people in my family that have panic disorders, anxiety disorders, and really meditation has really helped me curb that. But you have to give not a lot of credence sometimes to your fears because they're irrational. That's why it's there. Our brains, you know, we're on this wavelength of the caveman brain still. Our minds we haven't caught up to our biology yet. We don't have to be scared of spiders and snakes like we used to, because it used to be a very real threat. Now you can just avoid it, you know what I mean, or call an exterminator or whatever you want to do. But the fears that most people are going into nowadays are totally different than what our biology is designed for.
Right. Yeah, with technology, we also have a lot of people not reaching out for community. I think one of the important things that like religion and church does is that it helps bring a community. And I think that what I've experienced through Death Squad or through my friends with the Mediocre Show, they have listeners called the Mediocre Nation, who actually I flew out to Salt Lake City to see their live show a couple years ago, and I was on a buddy pass, and I didn't want to spend the money to fly back because I got rolled over 16 times. When I was in Salt Lake City. I was supposed to be home on a Sunday morning, and I didn't get home until Wednesday, and it was looking like I was going to have to wait some more. And my friend Eric Tomorrow from the Mediocre Show put out on Twitter, hey, can we help get him home? And within an hour, this community had bought my ticket to fly home. They bought my wife a bouquet of flowers and apologized. And there's
so awesome, dude.
Right?
Dude, incredible.
Wow.
And my friends that I've come across in the Death Squad community who live in various areas and who we have a similar mindset. We have, like, it's like you guys. If you guys lived in my area, I would be hanging out with you guys.
For sure, man.
We would be like, I would be planning on doing local podcast stuff with you guys. And I think that's the important thing that Duncan, when he was on my podcast, Duncan Trussell told me, is that stop complaining about the area where you live, make that area a better place. And
Right.
Red Band, who is super silly, but if you look at what he has done for podcasting and for bringing out content with Your Mom's House podcast, with Ari Shafir's podcast, with the Death Squad Network, and the fans that have, the listeners and fans that have come from Joe Rogan in that community, like, those are some of my best friends that I have, and some of the people that I can call up and I can have conversations with, because I've been with them. I've seen their families. I've spent the night at their homes, and I realized that these are my buddies. These are my friends, and these came from a community that started on the internet. I'm not afraid. Like, I've been around shady people my whole life, and I get a certain vibe around people. Rogan talks about having a sense of when you're around people. I also, from being around a lot of different types of people, have that certain sense, and I like to surround myself with positive people who are trying to get up and do things and make sure that they're working hard.
Yeah, you can't have vampires around you, man.
No, dude, you got to cut the vampires out of your life totally. But I think focusing locally now is where I'm at, and trying to build up the local Dayton community.
Now, what are you going to do? Like, I fantasize about this as well, and
You can do it, man.
Yeah, but like, what I mean, well, I live in the community that I live in would not be a beneficiary of anything I could do. The property, I live in one of the places where the property taxes are like, the second or third highest in the country, unfortunately. So like that's cool, but my area is okay. But there, short distances, there's areas that are not as okay. But like, what are you going to, like, what are some of the things that you would suggest to people to do to bring vitality to their communities?
Well, and this all depends on if you're an outgoing person. There's people who they have social anxiety disorder, and they can't
Sure.
get out. They can't get around people. Through my time with church, and because I would go and talk to people, and I didn't have I actually preached. I got paid to preach a couple of times, and so I'm not afraid to go and interact with people and communicate. I don't care what people think about me. I'm shy at times, but if I'm in an environment, I can work past that. And so I don't know how other people will do it, but for myself, how the process that I found is start finding artists, start finding people within your community that are working to better your community, whether it's through gardening, through something creative that you enjoy. Start finding hobbies that you enjoy. I know a lot of people that don't have any hobbies besides watching TV. And
Right. And what a drug that is, right?
For sure.
One of the worst.
It sucks. All you have as a conscious creator is time to work with. That's all we have here, really, is just time. And that's what we're always concerned about maintaining, right? We eat so we have more time. We drink so we have more time, and to just give it so freely to somebody that's trying to rape your consciousness for all intents and purposes with their, buy this shit so you feel whole, and it works. And I don't understand. Like, it worked on me. And then I ate the mushroom. And that's it.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work anymore. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, but I think find a local art community. I find that artists are more open-minded than most people, and I enjoy to be around creative people. I enjoy being around different communities. If I can take my talents and interact with people and try and do something different. And I don't. There's not really a plan. It's kind of just going along as it's coming. It's very much like what we talked about with technology. I'm not really controlling it, but through hard work and going out and recording these podcasts or taking an hour or so doing a podcast like this to get out. That's what I'm working on. I can't say that everybody could do that, because there are small communities and there are very conservative areas in this country where there might not be anybody like you within 40, 50 miles, but go online and start searching for different communities through Twitter, through
find the others,
Facebook, find the others. If you search for them, they'll be out there.
Yeah, I know. That's why I started Twitter. Actually, I was like, all right, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy?
When did you start your Twitter account, Pete? Because you got like 20-some thousand followers on that thing.
I started tweeting in like January, I think.
It's amazing.
That's got a strong following real quick then.
They're well, I call them the travelers. They're good people.
Yeah, they are, man.
They're helping me grow as a person, and I'm appreciative to them for that. By letting me see all their different perspectives and interacting with me, by taking their time, which is the time and attention. Attention is the currency of creation. Right? Pay attention. So when they take their time and interact with me and show me their perspectives, it helps me look at the world in a more expansive way. So it's cool. It's very cool, and I'm humbled by it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I hate to cut this conversation off, man, because we got some juicy shit.
We'll do
here.
it again.
Well, I hope we can. I hope we can do a part 2 of this at some point.
No. We can just do this whenever you want, dude. Just all you have to do. The thing about podcasts, just ask. If you want us to be on, just ask. I'd love to talk to you guys on a regular basis. I'll
man. Seriously,
just let me know.
This is actually one of my favorite conversations, guys. So appreciate you both being here.
I appreciate it, man.
Hey,
thanks for making
guys,
it happen.
Yeah. Why don't you guys pimp yourself out, man? Where can we find you?
Go ahead, P. I got quite a few things.
Yeah, Terry.
No, dude, I'm on.
This is going to take a while.
P-Nautic on Twitter. You know what I mean? Come watch my Twitter addiction if you would enjoy that kind of thing.
You guys can go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Vine, and Tumblr, all at the IzzyRock. I put out some videos. I like to create videos and pictures, and I don't limit myself to just podcasts. So if you go to Instagram, there's a lot of pictures I've been making. On YouTube, it's IzzyRock73. I've done some videos with Death Squad Ohio and some of the meetups that we've had. There was a cool meetup that we had at before Joe Rogan this past March in Columbus, where myself and Drew Sample, who does the Sample Hour podcast, we organized a party before the Joe Rogan show. We got a bar, and over 100 people showed up, all through social networking. And so that video is out there. Rogan actually tweeted it when I first put it out. It's just search IzzyRock73 or Joe Rogan meets Death Squad Ohio. And I also do Tales from the Hardside podcast, On the Block podcast. Both of them you can find on iTunes, Stitcher. The Inspired Disorder Collective, which is a great group of people doing content like this. And you can also check it out at Mediocre Radio Network. And I love you guys. I hope all you guys enjoy this. If you do, let Jason know that you like what he does. Go rate, review, and subscribe to all the podcasts that you enjoy, and just generally let people know what you're into and what you enjoy.
Good shit, guys. I'm gonna have description links in the description and all that stuff too, so you can find these fantastic gentlemen out there. So once again,
please visit us, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We're at IGC Cast at Twitter. We're on Facebook at Intellectual Gentlemen's Club. We're on YouTube as well. You can listen to the podcast through there. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. Just show your support out there, guys. We really appreciate it. Once again, we have the support page on the website, www.intellectualgentlemensclub.com. Click through there to go through all our links and everything. And thank you again, guys, and hang loose out there.